These are 18 Pokemon that Ash still needs to catch. And first, he's gotta finish what he started in the episode Banned Outside of Asia, where he caught 30 Tauros. Cause Paldea has not one but 3 even cooler breeds of Tauros: the fighting type Combat breed, the fighting fire type Blaze breed, and the fighting water type Aqua breed. After all, Ash's Kanto Tauros helped him win the Orange League and took out Annabelle's Metagross in the Battle Frontier, so I'm sure Ash could take the Paldean Tauros breeds to even bigger victories. But the number one Pokemon he needs to catch when he finally makes it over to Paldea is of course Charcadet. Since depending on the type of armor you give it, Charcadet will evolve into Armor Rouge, a badass fire psychic type with a cannon, or Ceruledge, a badass dual-wielding fire ghost type. But the question is, which Charcadet evolution is right for Ash? And the obvious answer is Armor Rouge, because Edward Scissorhands is a merciless beast who will do anything to win, which is not very Ash-like, whereas Armor Rouge is an incredibly loyal warrior known for fighting fair. Not to mention that its design practically screams Team Ketchum, and Ash training it up to beat a rival Ceruledge would make for a great storyline. Then again, Ash already has a crazy fighter who is in it to win it, who he simply needs to evolve up into its ultimate form. See, Ash's Primeape has been training with a coach named Anthony ever since it won the P1 Grand Prix way back in 1997, so you just know it's ready to slap the lunch out of people. And according to game logic, all Ash has to do to evolve Primeape into Annihilate is have it level up after learning Rage Fist and using it 20 times. A fighting ghost type is just too cool not to add to the team. And while he's evolving Primeape, he may as well evolve Mr. Gibblesworth up into a Garchomp, because 1, it showed real potential in the Sinnoh League, 2, we've seen just how lethal this Pokemon can be under the likes of Cynthia, and 3, it would give Ash access to another Mega Form. So yes, it would be awesome. But the hype for Ashchomp is nothing compared to the hype for the strongest Pokemon he almost got back in Johto, who everyone still wants him to catch, Tyranitar. In Lapras of Luxury, Ash received an egg stolen from a Pokemon Preserve on Mount Silver, which hatched into a Larvitar in the next episode, meaning that Ash technically owned it even though Professor Elm told him to take it back to its home. Even though this Larvitar was scared of humans, it did trust Ash, and they traveled together for a full 6 episodes, so it was a strong candidate to join the team, only for Ash to, in the end, leave it on Mount Silver with its mother. And yet the two had a great bond, not to mention that Larvitar is shown as one of Ash's Pokemon twice in Pokemon Journeys. So now that Ash is traveling the world to befriend every Pokemon he can, there's no reason he couldn't head back to Mount Silver to catch Larvitar and of course evolve it into a badass Tyranitar. And who knows, maybe at the summit of Mount Silver he would even bump into Red. If he did, it would surely inspire him to finally catch an Eevee, cause whether it's Gary, May, Serena, Lana, Gladion, Chloe, or Mr. Evolutions, someone else always gets the Eevee. So it would be epic to see Ash get an Evolution at long last. And since Ash's OG rival and McDonald's head both have Umbreons, Espeon would be the perfect fit for Ash. Espeon Eshelly, because Eevee evolves into Espeon when leveled up with high friendship during the daytime, which means that since Ash is a master at maxing out his friendship stats, he could evolve that thing lickety-split. Not to mention that it would be a fun reference to Red, or that unless you count the Ketchum family's Mr. Mime, Ash has never had his own psychic type Pokemon, even though Mimey's battle under Ash at the Flute Cup showed us just how amazing that could be. Now, before we get to the craziest catch tease in Pokemon history, there are 3 Pokemon we need to talk about. And the first is one that Ash tried to catch that everyone forgot about. It's pink, it's cute, it's Springform Deerling. After arriving in Unova, Ash saw a Deerling that he wanted to catch, so he chased after it. Except that he was so excited he forgot to weaken the Deerling, so it easily deflected his Pokeball, then escaped with its herd before Pikachu could soften it up. Deerling is super cute, and its evolved form Sawsbuck would be a truly majestic addition to the team, so Ash really ought to tie up this loose end next time he visits Iris over in Unova. Failing to catch Springform Deerling obviously sucked, but what about the Pokemon that Ash failed to catch not once but twice? I mean, Ash spent hours trying to find a Dunsparce for Bucky in the Dunsparce Deception, then finally tried to catch his own years later in the Path That Leads to Goodbye, only for Iris's Axew to screw things up. But for some reason, Ash is really into Dunsparce, so he tried to catch a Dunsparce again while he was finding a gift for his old Snugglypoo in Under the Pledgeling Tree, except that this time he couldn't because he didn't have any Pokeballs. So let's hope the third time's a charm, just like it was with his strongest seasonal ace of all time. Cause back in the 8th movie, it was revealed that Ash had the ability to use Aura, which gave him a special connection with the Aura Pokemon Lucario. And the writers could have just left the Aura ability as a one-off movie gimmick, but 2 years later in the main anime series, Ash was mistaken for the descendant of the Aura Guardian in the Keystone Pops, which foreshadowed Ash bonding with the Riolu several episodes later. Unfortunately, that Riolu already had a trainer, but Ash finally did get his own Lucario in Pokemon Journeys, showing us that the writers sometimes do make good on these recurring teases even if we have to wait for several years, which is why 2023 sparked a whole new wave of hype around Ash catching the legendary Pokemon that fans have talked about him getting since 2002, when he first formed a close bond with the Latias in Altomare. Because in the first episode of Pokemon Aim to be a Master, Ash rescued and cared for a Latias, who ended up secretly following him him for the rest of his adventure, even saving his and Pikachu's lives in the episode The Same Moon Now and Forever. This Latias was weirdly fixated on Ash, which got fans turning out countless theories about how it might join his team. Then, in episode 9, Latias revealed that its counterpart Latios was in trouble, and it needed Ash's help. And the second last episode of Ash's final chapter was even called Ash and Latias. Talk about building up the hype. Except that at the end of the episode, Latias ended up saying goodbye to Ash and, together with Latios, departed for Alto Mare. Yes, you heard that right. Alto Mare from Pokemon Heroes finally showed up in the main anime series, which only strengthens Ash's connection to the place. And even crazier, we see two girls who look like the character Bianca from the movie, meaning that one of them must be the Latias in disguise who Ash befriended back when he visited Alto Mare. Just like with Lucario, Ash is building up too much history with Latias to ignore, and he even finds himself wondering how Latias and Latios are doing at the end of the final episode of Aim to be a Master. So now that Ash is out exploring the world, reuniting with one or both of these Latias in Alto Mare and catching one of them is a real possibility, especially the original one since it's all alone. I mean, the third time's a charm, right? And this would sure be a good tradition to double down on when it comes to Ash catching Pokemon. On the other hand, in Pokemon Journeys, Ash broke his tradition of catching a regional bird in every region he travels to, which means that one of his top priorities is to return to Galar and catch a Rookidee, then evolve it into Pokemon's most badass bird, Corviknight. Because although adding Corviknight to his Masters 8 team would have been a serious fire hazard, now that he's cycling through team members, it's the perfect time to turn a flying taxi into a flying tank. And as much as we love Dragonite, Dragapult was another fan favorite who fans wanted on Ash's roster, but with two other dragons on the team in Pokemon Journeys, it just didn't make sense at the time. But now that the World Coronation series is over, he ought to add one to his stable of dragons, especially since Leon showed him just how dangerous Dragapult can be. Then again, Paldea gave us an even better dragon for Ash to catch. And obviously, Applin is a goofy looking Pokemon which suits Ash perfectly, but what's really cool are its branching evolution lines, because depending on the type of apple you feed it, Applin will evolve into one of three Pokemon, Flapple, Appleton, or Diplin. And all three of these wacky dragons would fit right into Ash's team, but the best option is obviously Diplin, since it's the only one that can evolve again into Hydrapple, the strongest Applin evolution of all. Since we only saw two of Ash's Pokemon evolve in Pokemon Journeys, Applin's journey to become a Hydrapple would have been a lot of fun, not to mention the perfect tease for the Indigo Disc expansion to Pokemon Scarlet and Violet. It was a missed opportunity, but it's not too late to make it happen. And before we hit one more dragon that Ash absolutely needs to catch, we can't forget about the little piggy that went wee all the way home to Hoenn. I'm talking about Spoink, who could have easily joined Ash's team back in Ruby and Sapphire, when it showed up not once but twice in Pearls Are Spoink's Best Friend and Clamperl of Wisdom. Spoink had a great personality, a funny gag/storyline about losing its pearl, and it became such great friends with Torkoal that Torkoal almost ended itself to get the pearl back. Not to mention that the writers revisited Spoink by assigning Ash one for the Pokemon Triathlon in Diamond and Pearl. Spoink was a gem, so Ash had better head back to Hoenn and catch that thing before it ends up in a pulled pork sandwich. And another farm animal that Ash needs to reunite with is the Rapidash at Laramie Ranch, because back when it was a Ponyta in the Flame Pokemon-a-thon, it trusted Ash enough not to burn him with its mane and evolved into Rapidash while they raced to victory in the Big P Pokemon race. Rapidash really took a liking, or should I say a licking, to Ash, and now that Ash is hoofing it across the world again, he could really use the fast ride. Rapidash does belong to Lara Laramie, but come on Lara, 29 Tauros for a single Rapidash? It's a steal. However, one way stronger rideable Pokemon that Ash simply needs to catch is Flygon, cause the two looked great together when they teamed up to save Jirachi and stop Metagroudon in Jirachi Wishmaker, and when a Flygon turned up in Pokemon Journeys, we all thought that, you know, maybe Ash would actually catch it, only for him to suffer a PBSD meltdown, leaving Go to catch Flygon instead. Immunity to ground type attacks is always a good thing on an Ash Ketchum team, and immunity to electric type attacks on top of that is just downright dirty. So whenever Ash decides to go traveling with May and Serena over in Hoenn, they'd better hit up Route 111 to get the job done. And speaking of getting the job done, you'd better check out this video right here. Oh yeah, as for the 18th Pokemon, it's Solgaleo, cause even though Tapu Koko entrusted Ash with Solgaleo as a Cosmog and the two bonded over many episodes, Ash never actually caught it, so he ought to at least pull a go and make things official before letting his friend get back to business.